Hey folks, welcome back to Only the Best Fantasy Novels. My name is Rabin, and today I want to talk about Princep's Fury, the penultimate novel in the Codex Alera series by Jim Butcher. And if I had to describe this book in one word, it would be preparation. This book is pretty much all preparation for the series finale, and it still manages to do some pretty interesting things along the way. But with the way that things are left off here, the stakes are quite high, and I really hope Jim Butcher manages to stick the landing. Because I've never read a series ending by him before. This will be the first time I'm reading a series of his that's actually completed. It's his only completed series, I should say. So whether he can stick the landing or not is up for debate. But anyway, what is Princep's Fury about? Well, an alliance has been struck with the Canim, and Tavi departs with them to return to Kane or wherever it is they're from, however you pronounce that. But when they arrive, they find a very different situation from what they expected they were walking into. The Vord have almost completely taken over the continent, and the once massive population of Canem is pretty much down to a few final dregs. So Tavi's hope for an alliance to defeat them has pretty much just been annihilated. But back across the sea, the Vord continue their relentless march towards Alera Imperia, with almost no resistance in terms of how unfair this war is so far. And what it boils down to by the end of it is that it's clearly going to take more than one race to manage to defeat the Vord. So, like I said, this was it was an interesting installment because, yes, it has like its own thing going on, but at the same time, it's all the major purpose of it is pretty much just to set the stage for the finale. Like we have three major subplots that unfold throughout this. The first is Tavi's time in Kane or however you pronounce that. And in this one, we really get to see how much he's changed, how much he's grown since his time in the very first books, I could say, because it's easy to forget that when all of this first started, Tavi was not. He was pretending to be a legionnaire. He didn't actually have any legionnaire training. He was pretending to be one, and he is a case of fake it till you make it. In this book, we see that he's pretty much made it, and he's effectively a career soldier at this point. Like in the way that he interacts with his the higher ups of the other race that he has to deal with, and his friends and their own internal politics and all of that. It's quite clear just how drastic a change he's undergone, and that's just one of these like three main subplots that happen in this book. The second subplot that unfolds is Isana's quest to recruit Antilles Raucus and his soldiers to the battle against the Void back in Alera. And it's an important step because Antilles Raucus has pretty much the only actually battle tested legions, you could say, in the entire era, but he's stuck on the shield wall fighting a war that seems less and less relevant as the Vord continued their rampage. So Isana sets out to essentially recruit him and his strength to their side. But when she arrives, what she finds is a conflict driven by extreme passion, in a very fascinating way. And for once in this story, we have a situation where you can't simply talk someone out of just doing whatever the hell they want to do. But yeah, so that there's also that story, and it unfolds in a pretty predictable way, as so much of this series does. But whatever, like it had its moments to keep things interesting and to break up the other three stories. The third for me was the most interesting one of all of the three stories that we have here, and it's a story of the Count and Countess Calderonis as they are essentially dispatched on a mission to go behind enemy lines and attempt to shatter the backbone of one of the more insidious threats that the Void are able to levy against Alera. And it's a very tactical mission for the two of them, and the things that and the horrors that they witness here is pretty dark. Like they encounter some old characters that we've seen previously, and the way that these characters have changed, now that they're essentially subjugated by the void, is pretty dark, even for this series, which has its darker moments from time to time. One of the cool things that I like about this story is this particular subplot is that Jim Butcher chooses to include slavery as part of it. Okay, fine, but he doesn't hide behind, oh, this was historical realism, or he doesn't like try to put like a spit shine on it and pretend it's relevant to the story, whatever. He very emphatically makes it a no, absolute no. Like he very emphatically stands against it. He makes it a very dark, a very terrible thing, and he makes it something utterly horrifying. And I appreciate how he handled that in this story. In terms of the overall book, it was pretty much just like I said. First and foremost, it reads a lot like preparation. In addition to that, we got to see a whole new part of the world. Like throughout this whole book so far, things have mainly unfolded within Alera, but now that Tavi is in another part of the world, we get to see another part of the world and how another society functions and this kind of thing. And it's interesting. Let's leave it at interesting, especially as that civilization is essentially under the threat of extinction. Attempting to fight the same force that Tavi fights. And you would think that his experience there is going to give him some insight or some knowledge into how he can withstand the void in his own hometown, in his own homeland. Well, whether that happens or not, you'll have to read or find out. But that's all I'll say on that. But yeah, I think honestly, I think that's pretty much all there is to say about this book. Like, it's everything about the Codex Alera series so far that it is just really interesting and fun to read about. It amps up the stakes. It sets the stage for the grand finale. It really shows us how different these characters are from where we first met them. And it sets things up to go in a very interesting direction, especially with that finale. Like, it ends in a pretty spectacular way. And now, there's no... It's difficult to imagine how things will progress from here. Because this being classic fantasy, you already can guess how the ultimate way it's going to turn out. Like, it's very predictable in that regard. But there's... The question is not so much of the destination, but of the path to that destination. How these characters and how this situation unfolds in that direction is what makes it so interesting at this point. And yeah, like, one more book to go. Let's see how this plays out. That's all I have to say about this book. Very entertaining read. At this point, if you're watching this, like, this is the 5th book in the 6-book series. Like, if you're interested in it, just read it. Yeah. If you made it this far into the video, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.